Kia ora whanau. So today I'm going to show you how we develop the soil here on this terrace. The history of this terrace: in 2005-06 we did that one converting an old farm track which was slightly off contour, was slightly pointing down the slope across this way, and that turned out to be the perfect gradient for us. But the soil was so hard that we couldn't get the spade in even. It was not topsoil, it was really hard compacted clay, as hard as it gets. So in this case here we went a step further in preparing the soil and actually buried logs as we opened up the soil and put in a bit of rough compost, what came out of sifting for our potting shed. We used the rough stuff in here with the logs and then covered it with this dead soil again. And as we went, we put in banana suckers and we planted quick covers such as pumpkins, and we had a corn crop in here in the first year. So it was really dense and always pumping. We had artichokes in between. We put sugarcane on the back side and taro on the moist shady side. So we had a whole package in there, and some of those things made it really well. Like this lucuma is beautiful here, a latecomer, a sapode direct seeded, and the tamarillo is fairly recent. What happens here, we are now phasing out the bananas, and then we plant these shade tolerant newcomers into these gaps because we forgot to do that early on. So above me is Inga bean. That's our emergent helper tree here, but a generous helper because we also sell the pods at the market and we eat them. So that is our multi-layered cropping system, and all these plants, all this amazing mulch we got from the bananas over the years, and all these plant roots, this high density of cherimoya here we need to thin out. But meanwhile, what it has done for us, it has opened up the soil for us, just like almost as good as some other helper plants. Cherimoya is quite amazing in that. So I'm going to dig a hole here now, and we have a look how the soil turned from a heavy yellow compacted clay into our orchard soil here. The soil cover now is a beautiful mycorrhizal, well-rooted litter from all the banana mulch, the chop and drop from the Inga beans. So you see the roots coming right up to the surface, and you see all these little Inga bean seedlings. We got thousands and thousands of them. Of course they're not going to make it now because the canopy is too dense for them, but if we would open up, then they could come through, and the best, most fitted one would make the race. So here we didn't bring any compost or mulch or anything in like that, no fertilizer of any sort over the last 14, 15 years. So it's only generated here. And we haven't been weeding here for a long time, but you see there are no weeds to worry about. There's occasionally an arum lily here. We pull on those whenever we do a cleanup, so they're phasing out. We inherited them. But other than that, we have no weeds to worry about here. Every plant here is useful. And of course we don't have any wild ginger and stuff like that. So, but just, you see, there's just no weed invasion here. Kaikuyo is long gone. And I'm going to make a hole here now. So sorry little Inga beans and sorry little lucuma roots, but we're going to make a hole here. Oh my God, look at that. Oh, that's not hard soil, it's just the root. Oh, look at the worms. Look at that. Oh my God, it's like digging in a compost pile. Oh my God, look at it. So what was hard was not soil, it was just some roots. It's highly rooted throughout here. So down here we start getting a bit of a discoloration. It's hitting the original clay, but you can see the clay is so crumbly I could actually dig it with my fingers. And we have, see, yes, that was the root, probably from an Inga bean. That's right here. And so that's the soil we had created as a topsoil. So yeah, so this much topsoil, and that came out of pure clay. But what's important to us is, how does the subsoil look like? Is the subsoil rooted? Is it alive? I mean, obviously still going to be clay. We're not suddenly having volcanic soil here. But how does that clay look like? So you see, it's beautiful, crumbly. Yeah, it's not platy as it used to be. Yeah, it has aggregated because of all the root development in here. Yeah. There's still worms nicely in there. You see, so the horizons have blurred now. It's all quite nicely mixed up. Often what you find under Kikuyu, you have a very shallow topsoil, and then there is a very strong division between heavy clay right under the topsoil and not much mixing around. Look at that, so we're still going down, and there's still all this marbling with organic matter in there. Look at that, I can just go in like that. And the big roots down there still from Inga bean. And look what I get out, is still nice dark soil. And I can just poke my finger in down here. It's not getting any harder. I can dig with my hand in there. See, that's what we're getting now, about 40 centimeters below the soil surface. And you can imagine now what this does to rain absorption. So when we get big downpours, this would have a pore volume of about 30-40% compared to maybe 5 or 10% it would have had before when it was compacted. So if we get, like, possibly this Sunday, Monday, we might get, say, 10 centimeters of rain. So in this case here we have 40 centimeters of penetrable soil, and if we have 40% pore volume, then this topsoil can totally absorb all of that rain before it is saturated and the rain starts running off. No problem. That was not the case before we did all of that. Then it would have just run off within the first 10 minutes because it couldn't get into the soil. So here we get it into the soil and we buffer it, and this soil doesn't get waterlogged either. It will be connected to the bag here with pore spaces and root channels and whatnot. So if there's ever too much water, it can seep out in the front. So it's never going to get waterlogged in there, ever. And the water can then slowly penetrate deeper into the lower horizons, possibly even get down to the bedrock here and get stored for the next summer. Yeah, we get a lot of winter rain, no doubt, but we lose a lot of that winter rain because the soil is immediately saturated, it has low pore volume, and the water just runs off into the next river, silting up our harbors. Yeah. So what we do here is we're doing the opposite. We try to get even the winter rains all soaking in here because we will need them next summer. This is our water tank on a big scale. Yeah. this is one big water tank. And at the same time, that water tank is full of action, full of life, and it produces food for us meanwhile, as it works as a water tank, of course. So even that looks still good. Here is a bit of a stickier one, but when you open that stickier clay, you can see there are heaps of pores full of organic matter, which is of course our carbon. Look, roots everywhere. And that's what I didn't even mention. So now I'm down to this level here, yeah, and I'm still getting that. So what we see in here, that's carbon that we have stored into the soil that wasn't there before. Whereas before we had maybe 1% carbon only in a layer like that, and now we have 12% carbon, but to depths like that, and we're still counting. So, and that carbon is not just sitting there being stored away, it's actually a functional carbon. It's highly active, it has a high metabolism. Means it feeds plants, absorbs nutrients, holds water, gives water to plants, helps in assimilation, can breathe in and out in the soil, provides energy for the microbes. All of that is happening constantly. There's a constant exchange with that carbon. It's a very dynamic carbon in here. And we have created this tremendous carbon sink there that works for us, works for water storage, works for wildlife and the climate and all of that. So we can see now the soil is so good here, and it must be free draining judging by the condition. We're going to plant some avocado seeds in here and see if we can get a nice crop out of them here. We have seen over the years that what we believed was not possible before, now we have actually a few seedlings that are starting to produce, and they look really healthy. So yeah, we have somehow transformed our clay as if it was a volcanic soil, and that was all thanks to the high density and diversity of plants, and crucially the management of those. We want a high turnover in order to achieve that. So to sum it up, this was heavily compacted clay, and it had no topsoil when we started. We put some amendments in as we dug it over to get our first crop producing well for us as an annual. But with that, we put in all these perennials and the helper trees and natives that you see here now. And with the right management that we gave them, they created all this mulch, all this root tunneling, all this feeding the microbes in the soil, and transformed this yellow hard clay into this beautiful garden soil here. And now we get to the point where we can plant avocados here where that was just not even feasible before. And the soil has transformed. The whole terrace is just like that. Yeah, so it's not just like a planting hole, it's the whole terrace is like that. And that took us 15 years roughly, but it doesn't mean that it takes all the time to get to that. We have arrived at something very similar to that already a long time ago. It usually takes only 2 years, 3 years, and you start seeing something just like that. Yeah, so it is really fast process, and it's enjoyable to watch how it is transforming, and what beauty and life intensity it brings about. So that's how we do it.